Hey, Jamie here, and welcome to Module 3, Strategic Planning, Part 1, where we're going to be breaking down the ultimate success formula. So before we dive into Part 1, I want to give a little context as to the idea and the concepts and the philosophy behind this Module 3, Strategic Planning. So strategic planning is not just for your career. We need to plan our personal lives as well because we want to make sure that our personal lives are in alignment with our careers. And similarly, that our careers are in direct alignment with our personal lives. Because at the end of the day, our careers, our professional lives are a direct reflection of our personal lives. If we are unhappy in our personal lives, we're going to be unhappy in our professional careers. That's how it is, and that's always how it has been. And so we need to plan both, and we need to have goals and visions, and we need to have fulfillment in both. And so in order to have that level of fulfillment within both, we have to plan it. We have to strategically plan it. So in this first part, we're going to be breaking down what's called the ultimate success formula. Now, I know that's a very cheesy name, but there is a consistent framework and strategy for realizing whatever goal you want in your life, whether it's personal or professional. And the reason I purposely don't use the word manifest is there's a lot of cliche behind that word and a lot of kind of connotations or voodoo around the word, and some people throw it out and they say, all right, well, that's garbage. Now, that's what everybody talks about. So I'm purposely not using the word manifest because I want you to think of this as it's a progressive realization of a goal. You set the goal, and over time you consistently apply, you focus on it, you consistently apply yourself towards it, and eventually it becomes truth. You realize it. So in this part 1, we're going to be breaking out what is that framework and formula, and then we're going to understand what is success modeling, what is reverse engineering, and what is iterative improvement, which are all part of that framework. And then breaking down and understanding how do you then apply this process to your personal life as well as your career. So to start with, most people are drifters. And the word average has a lot of negative connotations around it. People hate being average. No one likes to be told you're average. And I don't mean this in a good or bad way, but there's a reason most people are average, because they do what average people do. And again, it's not a good or bad thing, but it's just the way that it is. Most people lead average lives because they do the exact same things as other people, average people. And usually they're learning how to go about their life or how to go about their career from people who have average lives and average careers. Now, the average person is a drifter. And what I mean by a drifter is they do not have long-term goals for their personal lives or their careers. And so because of that, they are pretty much blown about whichever direction the wind takes them. So if the wind pushes them to, let's say, some other opportunity opens up and it's an additional $3,000, they might go take it because of the $3,000. But they don't have a framework to ask themselves, is this in alignment with what I want for my long-term life and career? Because they do not have direction, they don't know what to focus on. And that is the biggest problem that most people have in their lives, both personally and professionally. They don't know what they want. And because they don't know what they want, they can't make decisions effectively. Instead, they're kind of blown about and something opens up, and they, rather than asking, is this what I want? They ask, is this better than what I have? And you're going to consistently find things that are better than what you have. That's the whole idea of growth and finding opportunities. But is it an opportunity worth taking? And if you do take it, what is the opportunity cost? Because for every decision that you make, there will always be a sacrifice. If you decide to commit 40 hours to one thing, you're also at the exact same time deciding not to commit those 40 hours to something else. And most people fail to realize that that's what they're doing with their lives. Is because they don't know what they want and they don't know what to focus on, they're allocating and committing their most valuable resource in the world, their time, as well as their thought and energy, to something that may not end up getting them to ultimately where they want to be. They're drifting, and they bounce from one thing to another, and they're constantly bombarded by outside influences. So the best way to kind of visualize how most people live their lives, the average person lives their life. And again, Average is not good or bad. It's just that's the middle of the bell curve. They're not the 10% that are crushing it. And so the best way to visualize this is through a metaphor that I call 8 units of progress. So most people live their life in almost like a shotgun approach where they're constantly expending their energy in many different areas, many different directions. They don't have one consistent goal or one consistent vision for where they want to lead their lives or their careers. And so because of that, they're constantly being pulled in multiple different directions, and they're constantly trying new things or exploring new things, which means that all their energy, their thoughts, their focus is being completely scattered. Imagine the sun, if you were to take all the energy of the sun and beam it in one light or one light beam. So rather than the sun being 360 degrees, three-dimensional in all different areas, if all the energy of the sun were to be concentrated and shot in one beam and that were to hit something, I mean, the energy would be unbelievable. And that's exactly how our minds work. Most people have a scattered kind of shotgun approach with their thoughts and how they're focusing their energy in their lives. And so because of that, they don't have that concentration of energy. So most people, because they don't have the concentration of energy, they can't break through problems or issues or setbacks or failures or negative-minded people. Anything in their life that blocks them, because their energy is so weak in that one specific area, it crushes them. It stops them. It blocks them from getting what they want in their life because they don't have the energy, the momentum, or the force to get through that problem. And so this is kind of a visual representation where, all right, if this person is kind of spreading their energy and exploring 8 different things all at the same time, well, at the very top, let's say that that path led to a failure, a bad outcome. They say, well, I'm just not good enough. I can't do this. So they stop. And then let's say the next path is they hear about an opportunity or something in their personal life. And so a career example would be, let's say they apply and they get rejected. Well, they accept that as terminal. It's done. I'm not good enough. I'll never get in. Done. I'm going elsewhere. I'm moving on. Or in a personal life is, let's say that it's a guy or a girl that you want to ask out on a date, or it is someone that you're really interested in speaking with just socially, and that person turns you down or says no, and then you never try again. So rejection, that causes most people to stop because they don't have the willpower or the focused energy behind it to keep moving forward. And then let's say that the next direction is an outside factor. So this is common where a lot of times people want a certain position or a certain company or to pursue a certain path in life, and in the exact moment that they try, there's an outside factor that stops them. So an outside factor could be government. It could be COVID-19. It could be anything else that you don't directly control. There will always be factors in the decision-making process or in your current environment that you don't control. Now, the thing is you can overcome those circumstances through persistence, but most people don't persist because, again, they're not focused on the outcome. They're just exploring. It's a shotgun approach. And so the one time that they try, if an outside factor limits them, they throw in the towel. They're done. So now let's say that the next direction is they explore something that's interesting to them, but it's too difficult. And they look at the amount of work and the amount of time and the amount of energy and commitment it's going to take to do that. And they go, nope, not worth it. That's too hard. And the reason it's too difficult to them and the reason in their mind why they don't want to continue persisting is because they don't know why they actually want it. They haven't set the vision. And we'll talk about that. And then the last example is they don't know how. So they want to do something, they look into it, and then they go, yeah, I have absolutely no idea how to do that. And this is the most common reason why most people don't try things or why most people don't actually pursue their dreams or goals is because they get stuck in, and I love the way that Tony Robbins breaks it down. He literally calls it the tyranny of how. And it is most people get stuck on how, and that's not where you should be getting stuck. And we'll talk about how do you break through that. So when most people, average people, live their lives in this kind of shotgun approach or a spread out approach with no real energy or focus behind them, they end up with, usually 2 or 3 available options. Now, let's say that one of them is unavailable. Well, that's going to leave them with 2 options. Well, those 2 options, most people, because they don't have a purpose behind their decision making, they're going to make that decision based on money. And again, as we had already talked about modules 1 and 2, money is not what leads to happiness. It's not what leads to growth or fulfillment. It's not what makes you feel alive. It's not the juice in life. Now, of course, you want money. It's an excellent tool, but that is no way to make decisions in life. So if someone takes this approach, they're going to make a decision based on whatever's available. And if it's 1 or 2 things available, eventually they're just going to say, all right, which one pays me more? And they'll literally take a certain job because it pays 5 or 10 grand more. And I've seen it consistently. And those people end up pretty unhappy, usually within 1 to 3 years later, or they move on to the next available option. So most people, average people, are living their lives and careers primarily being determined by outside factors and whatever's available in the short term. And that is the most important thing to realize, is people who are living this way are making short-term decisions versus knowing what they want in the long term and making decisions in the short term that will get them to the long term. The single biggest factor that will determine whether or not you achieve what you want in life, personally or professionally, is are you short-sighted or are you far-sighted? And if you're long-term sighted or far-sighted, you know what you want and you're able to paint the picture in your mind of what do I need to do in order to get there. Most people don't have that vision for their life. Most people are making decisions about what's best for me in the next 6 to 12 months. And they fail to see that all these pieces are building a puzzle. So when someone lives this way, and again, it's not that it's a good or bad way. It's just, it's the average way. And average will lead to average results, which usually is not the biggest dreams or your personal greatest potential. So when someone lives this way, the way that I can kind of break this down, again, this is a metaphor, but you're going to have, let's say that you're the bottom right, and again, you have that shotgun approach and there's no real focus or energy, and you move 1 unit in one direction and you take what's available. So year 1, you can see in the top left, it's that little green arrow, and you're going to move in that direction. Well, that's going to lead you to the second year. And then same thing, that second year, it's going to be a shotgun approach, no real focus, and then something else is going to become available. And then that's going to lead you to the next position or the next area in your life. And it's kind of this intertwining random path through life. Now, again, it's not a bad thing, but it's inefficient. And not having direction leads to something taking a lot more time. It wastes an enormous amount of energy, and you make a lot less progress over the long term. So if I were to go back to this, because most people are living their lives and careers this way, they never really get to where they want to be or where they dream of being. And so the second way to live is, again, using the same metaphor, is let's say that you do have a goal. And it is a long-term goal, and you can see that goal and see what it looks like in the future, long-term. Well, the moment you have a goal, you can draw a line. And the fastest way between point A and point B is a straight line. So if I were to take a step back and say, let's say that you're in New York. So you're on the East Coast and you need to drive to the West Coast. You need to drive from New York to San Francisco. If you know where San Francisco is and you know that's where you want to drive, you have a vision. Well, all of a sudden, once you have a vision, you can start drawing a map and you know which direction you need to go. But most people say, all right, well, I don't want to be in New York, but I don't know where I want to go, so I'm just going to get in a car and start driving. They might go north, they might go south, they might go west. They'll go in any different direction. They'll kind of stop in town to town and figure out what's there in that town. And if it's good, they'll stay. If it's not, they'll keep moving, and eventually they'll find something. But they're not going to get to San Francisco because there's no direction, there's no vision. They don't know where they're going. And so that's the importance of having a vision, is it gives you direction in your life. And what you're then able to do is make strategic decisions and take strategic action in the direction of your goal, in the direction of your vision. So if you have 8 units of progress, you can take all 8 units and move in one direction. And you will achieve so much more in your life because you're saving time, efficiently allocating your energy, your time, and your resources. And because of that, you're going to make a lot more progress. So the other important thing is you could have a vision, but you're never going to hit it. You're never going to hit it 100% online. You're never going to be 100% on track or on course. Now, even this visual, this representation is assuming that you did really well, that you followed the path very clearly. Oftentimes, it doesn't even look this straightforward. And note that the arrows are not 100% on the gray line. That's because pretty much what's going to happen is you're going to start pursuing and taking strategic focused action on something, and you know you're going to be off track, but you're going to make progress, stop, reflect, and go, oh, I'm slightly off track. You adjust. Sometimes you over adjust, but that's okay. You're still moving in the direction. So year 2, you cross back over the line and you over adjusted. And then let's say in year 3, you then adjust back and eventually make it towards the goal. This is actually how pilots fly planes. So if you were to if you were to fly from New York to Hawaii, this is actually what's going on with the computer systems in the cockpilot or in the cockpit. The pilot is consistently using the navigation beacons in the cockpit to fly in a direction, and they're consistently adjusting course every pretty much 5 to 10 minutes. It's consistently updating with, hey, adjust this way. Hey, adjust this way. Hey, adjust this way. And that's all based on air current. It's based on changing weather patterns, etc. But we need to be doing the exact same thing with our lives. We need to know with absolute commitment, what is our vision? What is our goal? And then we're taking very direct, focused action to get there, and we're adjusting on the way. So, again, all this is metaphoric, but it's just I want you to be able to visualize the difference between why do most people who live average lives end up where they end up, and then how do the people who seemingly are unbelievably successful, how do they get there? And this is the visual representation. So these two, kind of the shotgun approach to the 8 units of progress versus a very focused, you know exactly what you want, vision-based 8 units of progress. What that looks like is if you are vision focused, and again, I know this is metaphoric, but over 30 years, this is the amount of progress or distance that you would cover if you had straight, 8 units straight every single year, consistently in the vision or direction that you want to move. But someone who's following a shotgun approach or a very drift-oriented approach, they're only going to cover about half the distance because they're wasting so much time, energy, and progress throughout. Because they're going up and then down and then left and then right and then here and there, and they're moving all over the place with no sense of commitment or no sense of direction. And they give up a lot easier because they don't really know why to push forward because they don't see the vision. So you must have direction and focus in your life. You need to have that long-term vision for both your personal life as well as your professional life. It's not a I should have a goal. It is an absolute must because your brain will not turn on and think about how to achieve this long-term goal if you don't have it, which means that you're not going to come up with the ideas, the strategies, or take the action needed in order to get there. Most people live completely average lives because their brain isn't thinking consistently about how to achieve anything more than average because they don't have that vision. So what you got to take away from this is that it is a science. Getting what you want is a science. It's not an art. It's not luck. It's not hope. And hope is not a strategy. That's a phrase that I love to always remind people. Hope is not a strategy. Faith unused weakens. Courage unused weakens. Your mind unused weakens. Muscles unused weakens. And so success is a formula saying, this is what I want, this is what I need to do. I'm going to consistently improve myself, make progress, and get there. A lot of people don't agree with that. And that's their belief. They're choosing to believe that. But if they look at history, if they study who are the most successful people in the past and read their biographies, read their autobiographies, or listen to the interviews, all of those people said, of course, things played out well. And a lot of people will say that it was luck, but what they often fail to mention is that they spent hundreds or thousands of hours preparing themselves, reading, studying other people's success, and then consistently taking action every single day. So success in the most basic way can be thought of as you have a strategy for getting what you want and you take action on the strategy. You have strategy and you take action on it. So this framework, this ultimate success formula has 4 parts. The very first thing is you got to know your outcome. You have to know what the long-term goal is. And we'll talk about the time frames for these goals because you will have different time frames. But let's just say, for example, right now, 12 months. 12 months from now, you need to have a vision for where will my personal life be and where will my professional life be? Where will my career be? Where will my finances be? Etc. So you have that vision. Once you have that vision, you then need to create compelling reasons, which is personal leverage. You're compelling yourself or motivating yourself as to why you need to do this. Why is this important to me? Why is this important to my life, my career, my family? A lot of people don't have reasons, a compelling reason for why they need to do things. And so there's no motivation. They know that they should do something, but it's not a must for them. So what we need to do and what you need to do is think through what is the pain and what is the pleasure behind this goal. And what I mean by that is creating leverage through pain and pleasure. So there's three different steps for doing that. The very first thing is you need to define why must you achieve your goal. And that'll be a sentence or two. But ask yourself, this is a must for me because. And then explain to yourself, why is this an absolute must? And then second is define how your life will be when you achieve your goal. And it's not if, it is a when. When I achieve this goal, how will my life be? Define your life. What are the benefits? How much better will your life be? What else will you be able to do in your life? And paint this picture in your mind, because when you can see and you believe that this is how my life will be, I will have this, I will be more confident, I will be able to live where I want to live, I will have more time, I can spend more time with my friends and family or kids. When you can see the benefits, it becomes a lot more enticing. And the other important thing to keep in mind is there's a difference between first order, second order, and third order consequences. So to break that down as an example, a first order consequence is, let's say in your personal life, you're going to commit to revamping your nutrition, your diet, and revamping your personal fitness, and you're going to lose 25 pounds while being able to increase the amount of weight that you lift or the amount of miles that you can run. So the initial first order consequence is your body's transformation. You look better, you feel better, you have more energy. But what would be a second order consequence? Well, a second order consequence is something that happens because of the benefit of the first order consequence. So if the first order consequence is better energy, health, and a better looking body, and you just feel better about yourself, well, the second order consequence is a massive increase in confidence, in self-confidence. Well, that self-confidence might then have a third order consequence, which is better performance in the workplace, or the ability to have the self-confidence and the courage to walk up to someone and ask them out for a date, or to do something else in your life that you otherwise wouldn't have done. So when you're thinking about what are the benefits or trying to define about how your life will be when you do achieve a goal, always take into account not only the first order consequence, but the second and the third order consequences as well. All right, so then the third point is defining how your life will be if you choose to give up. And one of my beliefs is failure is not a bad outcome. Failure is when you choose to give up on yourself. You choose to stop trying. You choose to throw in the towel, throw up your arms and say, I'm done. I can't. I'm not good enough. I give up. That's failure. Failure is stopping. Failure is not, think of it as a marathon. You don't need to run the marathon. Sometimes you're so tired, you're so exhausted, and you're so beaten down that you slow down to a walk. Walking is better than stopping. Crawling is better than stopping. The only time you fail the marathon is when you stop trying at all. You choose to give up, you throw in the towel, you quit the race. That's failure. So what you want to do is you want to very clearly define, what will my life look like 12 months from now, or 20, like whatever this time frame is that you're thinking through, this vision. What will your life look like if you choose to give up in the meantime? So if you don't achieve this goal, What will your life look like 12 months from now? And paint that picture. And so what you're doing is you're creating this long-term comparison, and you're creating two different lives, very, very different channels. It's like a fork in the road, and you're choosing, all right, I have one direction, which is everything that I want and an incredible upside and an incredible looking future where I have what I want, or I have this average life where I chose to give up. I gave up on myself. I gave up on my goals. And what will my life look like then? And the decision that you're making is which one of these two lives do you want? And if you really do paint the picture, it is pretty motivating to know every single day that I have to make this decision. And hopefully, I hope for you that you always choose the one that's a lot better, that you always choose that painted ideal vision of you achieving your goals and dreams. So then the third step for this framework is strategizing how you're actually going to take action on this goal or this vision for your life and career, and then take massive action on it. So what that looks like is, again, that is you actually making the 8 units of progress forward. So you have your initial strategy, or you have your vision for where you need to go. You come up with a strategy for how you're going to make progress in that direction, and then you actually go about taking action on that. And then the fourth part is improve or change your strategy. So looking at this diagram, this is assuming that you had a good strategy to begin with. Now there's two things. You had a really good strategy because it's in the direction of your vision, but then also you have really good action because you took 8 units of progress in that direction. But often what happens is something like this, where you don't have a good strategy and you're in a completely wrong direction, or at least it feels like you're in the completely wrong direction. Well, most people would call this a failure, but this is not failure because you had great action. You had very good action. Look at the amount of distance that you covered, but you had the wrong strategy. Most people, especially if it's something that you've never done before, or it's a brand new adventure or a new endeavor or a new industry, a new company, a new relationship, a new something in your life, very, very rarely are you ever going to have the right strategy to begin with. That's the point of living. We almost never, ever get it right the first time. But we learn from that. So this is actually a win because you took awesome action, you did make progress, and by taking this action, you came to the realization afterwards, this was a bad strategy. Most people never even figure out if something's a bad strategy because they never take the action. It's better to do something and learn that that was a bad idea than to not do something at all and ponder or continue to read books or think for a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, or for some people a whole lifetime about how to do something. It's better to try and to fail and learn quickly and then try again and improve the strategy than it is to never start at all. So I want to repeat that just because of how important that is. It's better to try and get a bad outcome and learn from it and do that as quickly as possible than it is to not try at all and try to think through the perfect strategy. Action is better than action and execution beat long-term pondering every single day of the week, because it's through action that you get more information about what works and what doesn't. So how to actually apply this to your life? Well, one is, again, you need to have your outcome, which is what we'll talk about in part 2. And thinking through what do I want from my personal life and in my career. But then after that, you need to come up with compelling reasons, which is the internal motivation. And I didn't break that down earlier. I want to talk about the difference between internal motivation and external motivation. External motivation is what most people, average people, rely on. External motivation is, think about when you were a kid, your parents telling you to do something, or your teacher or your professor telling you to do something, or giving you something that you have to do, or a coach telling you, like a sports coach telling you, you need to go condition, you need to go run sprints, or you need to do X number of hours of practice. Like, most people rely on other people to motivate them. That is their greatest problem in long-term performance. The best people in the world are usually not externally motivated. They're internally motivated. They don't need other people to tell them what to do. They do it themselves because they motivate themselves. So internal motivation is when, as we talked about earlier, you have the internal leverage. You know what your long-term vision looks like and what your life will look like if you do it or when you do it. You have that image firmly and emotionally planted in your brain. And then you also have the image of what you'll look like, or of what your life and career will look like if you choose to give up, if you choose to stop trying. And that is emotionally planted in your brain. And every single time you don't feel like doing something, you think of these two very different lives that you could lead, and you motivate yourself and you say, nope, I want that life. I want the good life. I don't want that average life. That is what's going on inside of the minds of the people who are the most successful in any area, whether it's business, politics, sports, religion, like anything, any area of life. That's what's going on in their minds. They know the difference for what they want versus what they don't want. And they don't need other people to push them forward. They don't need someone to stand behind them and say, run. They get up, they put their own shoes on, and they tell themselves to run. So you got to have compelling reasons in order to make sure that you are consistently moving forward on your own. And then also the third part is strategizing. So this is where the tyranny of how comes in. This is where most people stop. So a lot of people will think through, all right, well, I want this is my goal, and I want to do it because of this, but then they get stuck here. And they think, all right, well, that's, all fine and dandy, but how am I going to do that? So their biggest problem, or most people's biggest problems, is they think that they're the ones who need to figure it out. Most of what we want in life has already been figured out in the past. Many times, thousands of times, millions of times. So instead of trying to figure everything out ourselves, what we need to do is model success and reverse engineer success. And so I'll talk about what that means. So what that means is there are people who have been incredibly successful in the past, or currently are alive today, and they are incredibly successful. And so rather than you trying to read 150 books or think through everything and redefine and come up with your own solutions, there are people who are 30, 40, 50 years older than you are who've already gone through all the problems, overcome all the obstacles, tried all the bad strategies and learned from those bad outcomes, and eventually found what strategies do work. And so the single biggest thing that we can use to accelerate our lives, both personally and professionally, is to realize people are our greatest asset. And the reason people are our greatest asset is because they've already figured out how to do something, and we should learn from them rather than trying to figure everything out ourselves. So these 6 examples that I have on the screen, Michael Jordan, Tony Robbins, Sam Ovens, Greg O'Gallagher, Ray Dalio, and Richard Branson, these are these 6 people are people that I highly look up to. I consume their knowledge, their content, their success, their strategies. How did they get to where they are today? Whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, within business, in their personal lives, etc. All the different ways that they've built their lives or their businesses or their careers. I'm taking specific strategies from their lives, learning them, implementing them, and then realizing my own success following their strategies. I'm not trying to come up with all the answers myself. So for example, investing. When I think about investing and how to allocate my finances, I'm not trying to do theoretical or mathematical computations to figure that out myself. Because why would I do that when I can learn from people like Ray Dalio or Warren Buffett, who are arguably some of the best investors, one, in modern times, but then 2, in history? I cannot compete with that. So rather than trying to figure everything out myself, I should learn from them. How do they do it? Because they're sharing their information and their strategies. So I need to consume them, consume their content and their strategies, and then reverse engineer how they did it. So what is modeling and reverse engineering? So success modeling means you're finding mentors who have already achieved, this is the most important part, they've already achieved the long-term vision that you have. So whatever that green arrow is, or that green circle is, that vision for you that you have for your personal life or your professional career in the future, you're finding people who have already achieved that goal. Once you've found those people that have achieved that goal, you're then learning how did they do it. You're studying their success. And when you study their success, you're going to be able to break that down into steps. So when you study people, and in terms of finding these people to model their success, when I think about mentors, I know a lot of people think mentors as someone who's in your personal life, like you call them over the phone or you talk to them, etc. I would challenge you to think about mentors think of the mentors as the titans, the people who are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years older than you are, and they've achieved unbelievable success. I mean, these people have hit levels of success that are so high, you can't even get their time because their time is so valuable. These are the people that I like to consider mentors. And those are the books you're reading, the movies that you're watching, the autobiographies or the biographies you're studying, documentaries, interviews that you're watching on these people. But then you have kind of your personal network or your professional network. So this could be someone who has a level of success that you do want. So this could be someone that you do call over the phone, whether it's a family friend or a professional contact. So for example, later on when we talk about your professional career, your professional networking, you're going to be learning from people who are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you in your career. They're going to break down exactly what you need to do and how to do it. Because again, why would you try to figure that out for yourself when someone else has already figured it out and they can just tell you exactly what to do, how to do it? And then you have personal development. Once you've learned what to do and how to do it, then it's you developing yourself directly in that path to then be able to take those steps. So let's say that you find you've set a goal, you know why you need to achieve that goal, you have the compelling reasons, and then you find the person or the mentor who has already achieved that goal. You study their success, you study how they did it, their philosophies, their strategies, etc. Well, then what you need to do is then do your best to break down what are all the different steps that person took in order to achieve it. Most people get too tied up in the long-term steps. And that's the other thing I want you to focus on is the most important part of the process is not step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. It's step 1. Most people get stuck on step 1 because they're so demotivated and they're so overwhelmed by the enormity of the goal, and they look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is going to take 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, something absurd, and they look at that and they go, no way, I can't do it. They're trying to figure out steps 5, 6, and 7 when all they should be focusing on is step 1. The marathon runner doesn't think about mile 24 when they're at the start line. All they think about is mile 1. After they finish mile 1, they only then think about mile 2. And then after mile 2, they think about mile 3. And it keeps going and going and going. Our careers and our lives need to be the exact same way. We need to know the path. We need to know the long-term goal, the vision, the strategy. But then we need to only focus on step 1. Because the moment you start trying to think about or worry about steps 4, 5, 6, and 7, or anything else further down the road than where you are today, it overwhelms you. You feel stressed. You feel anxious. You start to doubt yourself. You worry about, all right, well, how's that going to happen? And the other thing is you're not going to have all the answers because you're not even there yet. So only focus on step 1. And then you take massive action on step 1. You move all of your energy, all 8 units of progress in that direction for step 1. Now, once you achieve step 1, then you can reflect. Did this strategy work? Is this something that I need to continue pursuing or persisting through? Do I need to change something? And then also, it's kind of like taking a break or a checkpoint and saying, all right, now that I've achieved step 1, what is step 2? So one of the things that LeBron James talks about was one of his quotes that I absolutely love, and I'm paraphrasing, and it's not word for word, but he talks about how success is not standing on the podium for 5 minutes. Success is 5 years waking up at 6 a.m. and running sprints. That's the champion's mindset. And he talks about how he trusts that if he does the work will take him there. And that is exactly what this diagram is that you are trusting that if I take action in the short term, if I know my strategy, I know my vision, I know where I'm going, and I'm focused, and I consistently exert deep energy and action on what I need to do today or this week or this month, that the long-term goals will take care of themselves. If you accomplish step 1, you will naturally then move on to step 2. But a lot of people are worried about the entire path, steps 4, 5, 6, 7, etc., and they never even get started on step 1. So take strategic, focused action in the short term, and the long term will take care of itself. So this part 1 was more focused on the philosophy or the framework or the mindset behind success. But as a final conclusion, I can't stress this enough, success is a science. It is manufacturable. Whatever goal that you want, you can find someone who's already achieved that goal, study them, figure it out how they achieved it, reverse engineer the steps that they took to get there, figure out your initial strategy for step 1, and then put your head down, do the work, and start focusing your energy and your action on that strategy. After you've got some progress, you pull your head up and you reflect and say, all right, how did this work out? Did I move in the right direction? Did I make the progress that I wanted? If not, you should still reward yourself because you took good action and you eventually figured out that, all right, this was a bad strategy. I need to redo the strategy. So if you focus, you do the work in the short term, the long term will take care of itself and you can always achieve your long-term goals. So in part 2, what we're going to dive into is designing your success. And really what that's going to be focusing on is designing your life and career. You can build the future of your dreams, but if you don't design it, if you don't figure out what that looks like, you'll never be able to build it. It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint. So part 2, we're going to be focusing on visions for your future, how to focus on it, and then how to work towards them. So thanks, and I'll see you in part 2.